Welcome back, everybody. It's Red Sports Radio. My name's Tyler. Joining me is James. And today we're going to hit our top 10s and quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and defenses. I think we're going to have a couple of different good conversations, some good numbers to kind of pad everything. And so just to kind of kick things off, we're going to start off in the quarterback area. James, I'm taking a look here at what you have going on. I'm seeing that you have Aaron Rodgers, same as me at the 10 spot, and
Yep,
moving out in the 6 all the way down to Trevor Lawrence. So if you want to go ahead and kind of explain what you got going on, and we're going to go ahead and then hit my area.
man. I think Stafford at number 9. He obviously first time in his career had health issues, but outside of that, dude's a rock star, Hall of Fame quarterback. Not having him in the top 10, I had to put him above Rodgers because even though he left the Lions, I still think he's a top 10 quarterback in the league. He's down as far as he is just because he did have his unhealthy year. Goff, went out there, had great production at the end of the season, pretty consistent. They had a good offense throughout the entire season. He did make some mistakes, definitely. Lamar Jackson, people are kind of catching on to what he's doing real quick. Fast guy, pretty dynamic playmaker. And, you have Trevor. I have Trevor Lawrence sitting there at 6. Definitely think he is above the guys where I have him. And bar none, I'd say the best quarterback from that class. Most
Yeah.
consistent, at least.
So what I'm looking at here is I got Goff at 9. I got him a little bit lower. I think the guys above him have shown a little bit more consistency in more previous years, and I'm putting more of the previous years into a lot of uh, what's the word I'm looking for? More recency bias into a lot of this. Here's what I'm looking at. And Goff's been doing great. He's been outstanding for his team, and so he had to make my top 10. Aaron Rodgers, a couple years ago, MVP, and he's always in that conversation race. You can't forget about him in that top 10 race. And I really wanted to put him higher, but in a new offense, I think his offensive coordinator he has worked with in the past, so he has to be in that top 10. But again, he's working with a new set of wide receivers. He's working with a new offensive line. His coaching system is going to be completely new, and the offense is completely new to him. So I think it's fitting for him to set at the number 10. I can't see him any bit higher. I do like guys like Lawrence, who last year played very well. He had a good year last year. Looking at some of the numbers and where he was at in comparison to like Fields, his passing was far better. He had more passing yards by far. I'm trying to pull them up now as we speak. Um, but then going into Justin Fields, his passing definitely took a hindrance from what I had seen. So if I'm looking at Justin Fields this year, I am trying to see what we're going to look at, and I do see his passing game picking up. I do see his wide receivers helping him out, and I have seen a lot of his preseason games. And in those preseason games, a lot of the time, I am seeing him be able to have the offensive line get more downfield and get those downfield blocks to help his wide receivers get those run after catch yards, and that's going to be important to him and getting those extra yards as a quarterback standpoint, and then from the wide receiver standpoint as well. So I really do think that Fields' passing game is going to develop exponentially this year, and I don't think we start to see a recession in his run game. Looking at how Lamar did after his MVP season, his run game did not take a hint at all. Like it was still very, very elite, and it still is elite to today. And I have him sitting there, I think, at like the 5 or 4 spot. We'll get there. So I do have Fields a little bit higher because of his run game ability. I think his pass game is going to catch up to Lawrence, if not surpass it by the end of this season. And then Justin Herbert, of course, very electric on the field. But the big issue I have with having Justin Herbert on right now is the fact that everybody in the AFC is just so electric, and it's just hard to differentiate. Just a couple different stat lines for that. So that's kind of why I have Herbert there. Do you see anything kind of wrong with what I have, or are you happy with what you have in putting, Justin Fields outside of your top 10 unless he's in your top 5?
He's not in my top 5. I don't think he was. I don't think he showed us anything last year outside of a few games. I think he has the potential, but I don't think he's deserving of a. I mean, outside of 3 games where he ran the ball great. Outside of that, he was an issue. I think we need to talk about that. The overall body of his work so far, like you said, with putting Rodgers where he's at, I mean, granted, and same with Goff. I just don't think Fields has shown us enough. I think he's shown us streaks of greatness, but he hasn't shown us anything consistently.
Yeah, I can see that standpoint, and maybe as the season goes on, maybe he is going to drop in my rankings. For now, though, I think it's okay for me to leave him in my 7. I do see a big difference here. Just a couple positions between our Trevor Lawrence. What did you see out of Trevor Lawrence, or what do you project out of Trevor Lawrence more so than maybe that what I'm seeing here?
Well, I just think it's the consistency with the program that he's in. He had a horrible first year, obviously, with Urban Meyer. Got a great coach in there, old Doug, and I think he's got a great coach. He's got a great program, and I think we're going to continue to see him improve. We've seen him improve leaps and bounds already, changing coaches, and I think that improvement will just continue.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that hits our top or our bottom 5 here of our quarterbacks. Moving in then to our top 5 here, I'm looking at seeing Burrow at your number 1 slot again. Again, we kind of discussed this last week, and we kind of went back and forth on it. But I'll let you kind of hit your top 5 here real quick.
All right, yeah, I got Herbert. Obviously, think he's a great quarterback. Has a lot going on for him. Allen, Hurts. Man, that one's kind of a toss up for me, at least. Josh Allen has been consistent, has been great, and Jalen Hurts just stormed it last year. Eagles went out there, balled out. They did it as a whole as a team, but I don't think they could have done it without him. He was fantastic. Mahomes, and I do like Burrow over Mahomes. I'm not going to just follow the media with yep, it's the Mahomes show, because Joe Burrow's really been right there with them. They're the ones that have gone back and forth. I think we're seeing more quarterbacks come into that realm. I wanted to say you take some of Mahomes' tools away, you can't do it, but they just relocked, reloaded, put more tools around him. And I just think Burrow has the more solid passing game, is going to have going to be a little bit more durable in the long run, especially as the season goes on. You look at some of the potential holes that Mahomes is going to be dealing with in the offensive line, and Burrow just has this opportunity to shine here again.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't disagree with anything you said. But I'm definitely gonna put Mahomes above him. And again, it's that relock, reload, situation. Travis Kelsey is 100 points, fantasy points above any other tight end in the league. Matter of fact, he's number 6 in all wide receivers fantasy scoring last year. And that's not going to slow down. That connection is far too sweet. And then all of a sudden, now he's got wide receivers. His offensive line is still very, very good, and it's up there. So I'm a Mahomes believer. I believe in everything that offense has to provide. I do fully agree with what you said at the 3-4 here between Hurts and Allen. It is kind of a flip of a coin. I do like, what Hurts is doing. I can't put him below Allen. I can't put Allen above Hurts, vice versa, because of the fact that he just went to a Super Bowl. I haven't seen Allen in a Super Bowl, and I think that was the deciding factor there for me. But both of those guys are very electric on the field. They're very, very good. And as soon as they hit they got that number 1 receiver in that offense, that's when we started putting them in our top 10. And that's, I think, part of the reason why I also decided to put our guy Justin Fields in my top 10 as well, because of that leap with a number 1 wide receiver. But again, I got Lamar Jackson. You can't disrespect the man. His game is very, very good. We're not too far off of where we have Jackson. But what are you looking at my list? Is there anything that crazy for you? Not too much different here between what I had and you have in the top 5.
No, I think both 1 and 2, 3 and 4 are both coin flips for their own spots. So it's just kind of where you go with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Any of those guys by the end of the season can be that number 1. And part of the reason I also had Joe Burrow at number 2, I kind of want to go back to him real quick, is due to the fact of his leg injury right now. I don't know if he's going to be a week 1 starter, maybe week 2 starter he might be. And just because of that injury, maybe it gets re-aggravated in the season. Mahomes is fully healthy right now. So he's going to come in and he's going to start out hot. He's going to be hot. But that's not to say that Joe Burrow is anywhere behind him at all on any stretch of the measure.
I think old Joe might throw some dirt on it, rub it in, and just go back out on the field if it gets re-aggravated.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's that kind of guy. I've also seen that from Matt Stafford. If you want to go back in time, He's got that mentality.
Pop my shoulder back in.
Yeah, pop it back in and let me go through the last play and let's go win this game and go home.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's kind of what we got going on there. Those are our quarterbacks top 10. If you guys have anything different, any questions, go ahead, put them in the comments. We'll be able to see those live as we go along. Moving on then, we got our running backs 6 through 10. And this is where I see a lot of differences between me and you. I've actually seen all of our rankings. So let me go ahead and hear why you have certain guys placed where you have them.
Man, as a Michigan State guy, leaving K9 out, the difference that he made in Seattle last year, I think we were going to continue to see him improve. The guy's sneaky. He's a playmaker. He's taken off on people. Dalvin Cook, hard to disrespect that. Tony Pollard, I am not. So he's as low as he is just because I do not like the Cowboys. And you're going to see that translated across here. I think Dak, potentially a top 10 quarterback. I would have him in my top 12 for sure. I'm just not a Cowboys guy. I think they made the right move and moving on from Zeke, going single running back with Pollard. He's got that sneaky. He's got that it factor. Saquon Barkley, Jones, it's hard to deny their greatness so far. I think they've done really well, but I don't think they approach the top 5.
Yeah, I'm really surprised in seeing that you have Barkley as low as you do. Because I have him a lot higher than you. And I don't know if you've seen my list or not, but I have Barkley a lot higher. So that to me, when I saw it threw me for a loop. My Derrick Henry, I have him at number 9. I think you have him a lot higher than I do on this list. But again, I see these other guys above him are just more pure runners, better in the pass game, and I think you're gonna hear the theme in my top 5. The pass game ability in a lot of these guys are going to be something crazy. But looking at what I have here, Travis Etienne, I think that he's electric on the field. I think that offense in Jacksonville is going to be built heavily around that run game, and then making sure that the passing game as well is going to be well complemented to that. So I do want to make sure that he is in my top 10. Tony Pollard, like you said, look, I like the defense out in Dallas. I think the defense in Dallas is electric, and I think it's going to put Pollard in a lot of good positions. But I don't think he's going to have that home run ability now that he doesn't have that dual threat backfield. They do have a couple other running backs in there, but again, it's going to be the Pollard show, and if they can find a way to shut him down, I haven't seen him play a full season as the lead horseback, and so that's why I kind of have him at that 8 slot.
Yeah.
Another guy that I have in here, the rookie, Mr. Robinson. Look, that Atlanta team, they've got a couple first-round draft picks that are arguably maybe a bust between the wide receiver, tight end area groups. But this guy here, he's electric. We've seen it in college, and I think that they're actually going to build the entire offense around him. I think that is going to be the focal point of their offense. Regardless if they're playing from behind or ahead, I think that he is going to be the lead horse. And I think that's why I had to have him in my top 10. And 7 just felt like a very good spot. But I think by the end of the season, he very well could be moving up in those rankings. So moving on in, let's go hit our top 5 here, which
you're not going to talk about Jacobs. We're only one spot off on Jacobs. I mean,
okay,
I think he is what he is. He's just a great back, great pure back. I'm going to circle back around. You kind of said it, put in a lot on the passing game. You have to look at those individual coaches too. I think K9's in that top 10 spot because Pete Carroll runs the football.
He does. My biggest concern is they just drafted another running back, and that's going to be a split now between him and the new back. I could not put him in my 10 slot. I think that Etienne's going to have a little bit better year than him, and that's just due to the fact that now that Walker is going to be in that split backfield after his injury. Looking at here, we have our top 5. The biggest jump difference we have is in Christian McCaffrey, and look, for me, I'm a firm believer in his pass game and his run game, and I think that the 49ers are going to blow it out of the park this year with it, especially with all their new acquisitions they have on that offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, they're going to be scary good. That's kind of why I dropped him down to 3, just because I don't want to admit that I don't want to admit that the top running back is just another receiver. Because
Yeah,
let's be real, he's not a running back.
no. He receives the ball just equally as much as he's running the ball, if not sometimes more.
I mean, if you take the Wildcat out of it, he's receiving the ball more than he's running the ball, or more than he's ever taken a handoff and running the ball.
Yeah. Another one that just blew my mind is the fact that the placement of Chubb, the best pure back in the game. He's not going to be receiving the ball too much in that offense. I do think with the new offensive coordinator over
Hold
there,
on, you just said pure back in the game. Yeah, we're talking pure backs, right? Or are we talking combo backs?
right now with Nick Chubb being my number 2, he is the best pure back.
He is the best pure back in the game.
He is the best pure back. I do think that he is going to have an increase in tick in the pass game. I don't know what that translates to fantasy production wise, but I am expecting to have him receiving more just with the new offensive coordinator in that city for him.
Yeah, I think we're going to see him receive a little bit more. I think it's just going to be like little dump and shovel passes across the line of scrimmage, though.
Yeah.
I don't see him as being that. He's not going to be that dynamic back that, you're not going to put him out on the line and then throw a double pass like what you see Christian McCaffrey do. I see him getting some shovel passes, some short passes, but I don't foresee his receiving ability really jumping off the sheet at us here this year on fantasy points.
Yeah, but I mean, in our PPR leagues, that's points per reception, and so
Yeah, definitely going to add to.
That's going to add up very quickly, especially with him being the best pure back in the league. And I don't think that's argued anywhere across the board. But the rest of my guys here are just receiving backs. And I think I personally made a mistake with leaving Jonathan Taylor in my top 5, just due to the fact of right now, we don't know what's going on with him. I just looked a couple hours ago. He's still trying to make deals in Miami and Dallas and trying to figure things out. So that's not even solidified. He hasn't, signed a deal. We don't know if he's going to even touch the ball to start the year out.
Man, I think after we've seen it go down with what we saw it go down with Zeke, we've seen it go down with Bell. I think he gets a deal done. That's why I do have him in my top 4, even knowing that there is the potential. But looking at where the career trajectory have gone for the guys that have sat out a year, I don't think we're going to see that a ton too often because it hasn't gone well.
Yeah, no, there's been, just a handful of guys that, decided to sit out that 1 year and they went downhill so very fast.
No, these guys are such elite athletes. They have to be playing against other elite athletes every single year, every single day. And, if they don't, they're just not, they won't be there.
Put it in perspective, me and Jonathan Taylor about the same age, 24 years of age. He might be a little bit of a hothead. I don't see him stepping up in the locker room. That the Indianapolis team, they're having a lot of issues right now with people showing up on time, to meetings and there's, betting going on and he's not the forefront. And for somebody that they're trying to build around and he's supposed to be the focal point of that team, I think he's supposed to be stepping in there and leading his team and saying, guys, this is not how it's supposed to be. I don't know if he's truly committed right now in Indianapolis. And that's what scares me because Indianapolis wants a first round for him. Point blank, hands down, they want a first round for him. And teams are not willing to give a first round draft pick for him.
Teams aren't willing to give a first round draft pick for a running back.
Yeah, that's who we're talking about, Mr. Jonathan Taylor, the running back. Which that's so scary to me. Like, I don't know if he's going to, have anything seen differently in Indianapolis just due to the fact. But again, if he's a week 1 starter, he's in my top 5, and that's why I have him here. I didn't want to go ahead and change it just due to the fact that if he does start, he is going to be in that spot very, very nicely.
Yeah, but go back to what I said. Jonathan Taylor, it's not just Jonathan Taylor, the running back. It was Christian McCaffrey, the running back, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
He didn't get a first-round draft pick, and look where we have him. He's above Taylor on both of our sides. So why would he's not worth a first-round pick? Why would Taylor be worth a first-round pick?
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
we see him go back, and I think we see him play 1 year with the Colts. We see the Colts completely. He's going to be once again the best player on the Colts, and everything around him is going to crumble.
Yeah,
and he's just going to stand back and watch it burn.
Yep, absolutely. And then again, for me to round out my 3 and 4 here with Barkley and Eckler, some of the best, if not the best, pass catchers, aside from Christian McCaffrey at the running back position. Again, their run game is also very, very good. We've seen them run people over and do some very good things in there. And so 3 and 4 just felt very, very good. I didn't know where to put them, flip it back and forth, but I felt very bad if I were to put Barkley at the 4 over Eckler. I think Eckler has, not that edge right now over Barkley. And so I had to have Saquon over Austin there.
So I went with the pure back approach, not the combo backs for my top 5. Obviously, as you see, I think Chubb, best back in the league. Hard to say there's a better pure back than him at this point.
Absolutely.
Over the last couple of years, he's taken that crown from the next guy, Derrick Henry. And even for me, just trying to say like, oh, I want the pure backs here. It's hard to really say McCaffrey isn't. I think he's just one of the best players in the league. We can take the position off of it. He's one of the most dynamic players I've ever seen play football. I don't know about you, Tyler, but
yeah,
it's just unreal to watch him play. And now seeing him out there with the 49ers I think seeing that this year is going to be an absolute spectacle to kind of watch. Just plug and play. Whoever they're going to decide they're going to have play is going to do great there. Taylor, everything's up in the air with him. If he does play, hard to say he's out of anybody's top 5 just because he is, he has been such a dynamic playmaker on a team with Jim Irsay messing things up.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that Josh Jacobs, he's just so much fun to watch in that program. And I really think we could see great things out of them this year, kind of switching up from where they've been in the past.
Yeah. So I do have one question for you before we move, like maybe to our wide receivers. You have Derrick Henry at your 2. I had him, much further down in my list than running backs. What are you seeing in the Tennessee offense, with Derrick Henry, as the lead horse and as that peer back that we've said he is? What are you seeing out of him this year that you have him at a top 5 very, very solidly, even in the top 3?
I don't think there's really anybody that can – I still don't think there's anybody that can just flat out run over people the way that Derrick Henry does. I don't think that there's anyone that – I mean, Chubb is definitely right there with him as being as harder to take down. But Derrick Henry still just runs through people. If he can stay healthy for an entire year, which is becoming harder and harder for him, I think it's hard to not have him as one of the best pure backs in the league. One of the top 10 pure backs in the entire league.
Absolutely. I definitely like your take on that as far as peer backs. But I think, for me personally, I had him a little bit further down just due to the fact that he's not that dual threat. The NFL is moving towards
no offense outside of him anymore, so we just have to deal with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on, wide receivers, our 6 through 10 slot. There is a lot of differences here, and the biggest thing I'm seeing is Ja'Marr Chase and Cooper Kupp right now are in your bottom 5 of the top 10.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like when that list came into me, I'll be honest, I sat there and I was like, maybe should I adjust his list, help him out a little bit? Like, can you explain why you have these guys at the position in which you do? Because it's thrown me for a loop, and I'm not piecing it together.
I mean, Cooper Kupp is great. I think we're going to see him get double teamed throughout this entire year again. I think with the other options that they have, they're going to be able to look other places than just looking straight at Cooper Kupp, and it's going to be the same thing for Ja'Marr Chase. We've seen more options come into their lineups. They can run them as decoys. They're going to get double teamed, and that's just what we're going to see happen.
I definitely like that a little bit more on the take for the side of Cooper Kupp, but Ja'Marr Chase, there's just so many weapons out there in Cincinnati that if you were to, let's say hide, him behind a screen or something just to get the ball to T. Higgins or hide T. Higgins to get the ball to Chase, those aren't even the 2 only options that they have out there, with their, who is it, the tight end? Is it Higbee right now for him?
Maybe I'm putting the Bengals low because I want Joe Burrow to prove that he's the best quarterback in the league and win the Super Bowl without having anybody in the top 5.
You know what? I will stand by that pick for you then. Just on that one there, Um, but looking at, kind of, we have AJ Brown in our bottom five, equally there.
Yep.
A couple slots off.
Same with
CD Lamb
Wilson.
is there. And then that's kind of really all we have in the bottom five, kind of the same. So let me just kind of back up. I have Equiminius St. Brown in the bottom half. I do like my top five more. I think that they are a lot further in their ability to make and extend plays. And I'm not saying a St. Brown cannot extend plays. I think everybody on this list here that I have is very good play extenders. I just think that, players like our Justin Jeffersons, our Jamar Chases, our Cooper Cups are going to extend those plays and make things a little bit further and more interesting for their offense. St. Brown is in an offense right now that is just starting to come together and looking very, very well. I'm excited to see what the Lions are going to be putting together this year. I'm excited, potentially to see the number one team in the NFC North in the Detroit Lions. So I'm not saying anything bad about Equiminius St. Brown. I like the guys above him just a little bit more. And then AJ Brown, it to me it's hard to place AJ Brown. He's so good. And is it because of the quarterback play? Is it because they're the schemes that they're doing? But at the end of the day, AJ Brown has to be on this list. And I wasn't sold exactly on where to place him. And I just was like slapping him in at a spot essentially and kind of going with it. Um, Garrett Wilson has to be in there as well. I think AJ Brown had a better year than Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson, again, what was it? Rookie player of the year, offensive rookie player of the year last year. So you can't forget about that as well. So he has to be on this list. I do like the play of Equiminius St. Brown over him. I like the play of CD Lamb better than him. I like the play of AJ Brown better than him. And then Devontae Adams, he's got to make that list. I am scared though, as far as his relationship with his quarterback now and in that offense and things that are kind of going on. But again, as far as a wide receiver standpoint, not to say what that offense is going to be as a wide receiver itself, I think Devontae Adams is a top 10 wide receiver, and he's going to prove that every single year that he's playing until, maybe he retires.
Yeah, Devontae Adams is pretty good, but I just want to see him with his new setup before I'm gonna. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely. I think he's got, very good upside and he very well could fall out of the top 10 by the end of the season, but I think he's also got the potential to rise in this list very, very quickly. Moving on, our top five in wide receivers. Again, just so many crazy things going on. You have Justin Jefferson at 3 compared to my 1.
you didn't even
Stephon
spell Hill right, bro.
Stephon Diggs, I have a little bit higher than you. And then Tyreek Hill, you are crazy about this man this year, and kind of explain why, like why you're a little bit more crazy about him than maybe I am.
I just think Tua's going to have a good year. I think Tua will have a good year. Hopefully, be able to get over some of the bumps that he's had. And the man's got an arm. And Mr. Hill's fast.
Yeah, he's the fastest man in the league, I think.
Oh yeah, no. So I think we're going to see them really kind of solidify their relationship, put it downfield, and the Dolphins could be really exciting this year. St. Brown, we saw the Lions kind of finish off strong, beating the Packers. You have a great route runner. Goff, good at getting them the ball. Yeah, not going to see a ton of yards after carry, but if you put it in his, 1.5 car garage catch radius, he comes down with the ball.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Consistent, putting it out
yeah.
there, and he's putting first downs out there if they get the ball to him. So I think he's right up there. Of course, you got Jefferson. Adams, he was a toss up for me. I didn't want to drop him all the way out. I think he's still that dynamic playmaker. I think they still go to him. I think he still has it together and does his thing. And I just don't. The Bills are the Bills, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, I think the biggest thing for me was the fact that I was looking at, Justin Jefferson with a little over 1,800 yards last year. And he had you know, 49 20+ yard receptions with 8 touchdowns. So to me, I'm looking at it and I'm like, wow, this man, absolutely crazy dominant. And then if I were to look at, some of the fantasy, points, he ended the season with
Oh,
368.6. So I don't think that's slowing down anytime soon. I think it's going to continue. Now Dalvin Cook is out of the picture. I think that, they're going to look more into the passing game. And again, that's going to open more things up for Justin Jefferson. So I really had to put him there. Um, Looking at, Jamar Chase, same situation, his yards in the game that he's got, his 20+ yards, his downhill deep threat ability is absolutely crazy. Same thing for Diggs, Hill, and Cooper Cup. All of those guys, I say my 3 through 5 are interchangeable for me. I think I could have Hill at the 3. I think I could have Cup at the 3, and I think I could have any of those guys there at the 5 as well.
you
So
just
it was
want to
just
see the ball launched downfield. That's where I was with my number one. Just chuck it, like, and those guys all catch it.
and that's where you get a lot of your fantasy points throughout the season is on the deep ball. And if you're catching, 49 of them in a season, if you're catching 45 of them in Tyreek Hill, or you're catching 47 of them in Devontae Adams, and to further your point there at the number 4 slot, it's astronomical, how well that racks your points up. And all these guys that I just listed are well over 300 points, scored last year. And the fantasy game, and I'm talking PPR here. I'm not talking any other fantasy style here. I play PPR, so that's what I'm going to go ahead and express on. It's absolutely crazy. We're looking at all of these guys, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, and Justin Jefferson, the 3 guys, all of which had over 170 targets last year. And then, what they were able to do with those targets, again, over, 60 of them were on 20+ yard attempts. So they are getting down the field and they are catching that ball down the field, and they're making a lot of things happen, after that as well. And it's crazy to look at, someone like Diggs with 11 touchdowns, CeeDee Lamb, he had 9 touchdowns. So a lot of these guys, it's just very hard for me to place them because, all their numbers are just so great and so exponential, and it's nuanced almost. And it's more of a preference base, I think, in my top 5 specifically, more so than anything else.
I just want everyone to know that the Lions just tied the game with the Panthers in the second. I know it's preseason still, but hey, we're doing all right.
Absolutely. So yeah, those are just some of the crazy numbers I was able to kind of pull up on the top 5 wide receivers. And I was talking about your list and my list all together, but it's wild to believe, that these guys here are that much further ahead of their competition. And our top 5s are almost identical, except for the fact that you have Equimania St. Brown at the 2, and I have him a lot further down my list.
Right. Yeah. I think we could see a good year from him. Just with, I mean, they're going to have to switch some things. Their biggest issues were defense, and I think they're going to
Yeah,
make it a point to get him open more because otherwise he's going to leave and go elsewhere, and the Lions can't afford that.
absolutely, absolutely. So it's crazy to believe, the wide receiver, room is what it is. Um, and then ranking defenses, I don't know about you, but for me, that was the hardest thing that I think I had to do in this whole thing. 'Cause there's so
I
much
mean,
going into a defense than
yeah,
it
and
is
there's so
just one
many new
player.
guys that we have coming out there. I'm looking more so at who do we have coaching um, than anyone else, and I'm just not a yeah. And then I just put my own little biases into
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of what makes this fun, isn't it?
it. Yeah, so I think I see we both have Patriots at that same 6 spot. You're never going
Yep.
to see a bad Bill Belichick defense.
No.
I mean, let's be real. I do think I don't know if you have the Commanders higher than me. I haven't seen your list yet. I think the Commanders are they've had enough picks that they should have a good defense, and
Yeah,
we did see them have a good put it together a good defense last year. They're a lot of fun. And then Dolphins, I think they're going to surprise us. They're going to surprise me. I think we're going to see a good Dolphins defense this year. coming out the gate,
Absolutely.
really blowing it up. But I'm still just not willing to put them higher than that because they've let me down so every single time I start the Dolphins on my fantasy league, they do horrible. So I'm just
Yeah,
not going to give it to them. And
absolutely.
Broncos, they're in the same boat. I think they're definitely they have the potential to be top five, but we have to see with the weapons that they've added where they're going to end up.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's where I think I put them at 7 because of that. Like I feel that they should be a top 5 defense, and how they're put together. And I feel very, very good about this Broncos team. Um, this Bills defense, really not much has changed. They've just seemed to be middle of the road, in my opinion, as far as top 10 goes. As far as the entire league, they are well above middle of the road. Again, if I'm placing somebody at 8th, they are still well above middle of the road. Um, let me
You
be very,
saw me
very
cock back at that one, like middle of the road,
middle of the
Bills.
road. Let me be clear there. They are still the number 8th defense on my list. That is not the middle of the road. There's 32 teams in this league. So again, 8th is very much so not middle of the road. But again, as far as my top 10, they're middle of the road in that top 10 aspect for me. And looking at the Browns, I think that their ability here to be a top 3 defense is absolutely crazy. I want to see them do it one more season. I want to see more games out of them. I want to see what they're able to do. And I think that's why I have them at 9. And then again, what's going on in Baltimore, can't be questioned. And in that defense, I think that leaving them at 10 is to me is just very fair to have them at that 10 slot.
We'll just go ahead and wait and talk about all this here in the next chapter.
The next chapter, here we go. Well, our
Yeah,
next chapter of our top 5.
I think we really aren't too far off. Besides shuffling, I do think the Bills are a top defense. I know they didn't really change up too much. They didn't have to change up too much. They go out there, they win games, and they have an offense that somewhat complements them.
Absolutely. I think the 49ers, after picking up a couple new guys on this defensive side, especially in that linebacking core, and then on their front 7 as well, have the potential to be my number 1 defense. But again, the Cowboys last year,
Yeah, no,
dominating. It was just something to behold.
not even
Uh, despite
not even a
their
question.
despite their offense, being a question at a lot of different times on the field, their defense kept them in the game. They were,
Every
scoring the
single week.
ball. That defense, you can count on them to actually score you points on the defensive side in PPR leagues. I could not let them slip from the number 1 position. The Jets, again, watching, the Hard Knocks this season, their defense is just looking absolutely, crazy. I think they're going to go out there and surprise a lot of people. I put them at my 2 just because of, that it factor I think that they do have. Um, the Eagles as well, very, very dominating. Just went to the Super Bowl. I can't keep them out of my top 5 just for that one reason. And then again, like you were talking about earlier with the Dolphins, I'm excited to see what they have, going, and I think that they are going to be a top 5 defense by the end of this season.
Yes, I completely agree. I think they'll be top five by the end of this season.
And so
Um,
I'm just going to prerequisite put them there now and leave them there.
I mean, for me, Salah, great, absolute great defensive coach. Came from the 49ers, you know, but I'm still going to give it to the 49ers. I think they have the most upward mobility. I think it's a toss up between them and the Jets on the most upward mobility on this list for me. Bills, I put in as a strong number 2. They're a strong number 2 coming in the preseason just because we know what we're getting. Same with the Cowboys, 49ers, Jets, Eagles. It could go any way for any of those teams. They're great defensive coaches, great teams, but also with outside of the Jets, these other 2 teams have the offenses to carry them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really, really excited to see, how these defenses are going to shake out. But again, Cowboys have to be undoubtedly our number 1. And you have to make sure that the
Somebody's
Jets
got
and Niners
to from them.
are in the top 5.
Yeah, somebody's got to take the crown from the Cowboys before I'll take them off that number 1 spot.
Absolutely.
We might as well call this Oklahoma. It's going to be the show me state from now on.
Yeah. So Cowboys undisputably number one. I didn't have the Commanders in my top 10, as you can tell. I have them on the fringe. I think that their offense is going to have to prove a little bit more. They don't have a starting quarterback that I'm too impressed with right now.
Are we
Um,
talking about team rankings or defense rankings?
This is defensive rankings, but again, on the
Okay.
offensive side of the ball, they're not gonna, leave them in a good position on the defensive side for that defense to do what I think the defense is capable of doing. I think the defense is very, very good. I don't see the defense being able to shine the way that this defense is made to shine.
Oh yeah, if they're dropping the ball on the 40 every single week, like there's little any defense can do with that.
Yeah. And that's kind of why I had those guys right there, just kind of outside of that top 10 for me. But again, very, very good defense. I'm excited to see what they have to bring. Um, but again, all these teams, can be very, very so interchangeable. And it was kind of this was the hardest list that I had to make, if I'm
Oh
being
yeah, hundred
completely honest
percent.
with you.
Well, I mean, the number one spot was really really easy for me. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that number one spot was real easy.
I plugged that in when I first sent you the proposition for this episode. I put them in and I was like, well, I got to figure out the rest of this. And
I
I put my
despise the
computer down
Cowboys,
for,
and I can't even argue that.
yeah, no, I plugged them in and I closed my computer and I was like, I got to think about this for 3, 4 days before I go ahead and get back to it. Because again, like I'm saying, it's so difficult now, ranking these defenses. And putting the idea of strength of schedule into this, and how many fantasy points they scored last year, and it's like, well, okay, now you're adding in new guys and you're taking guys off of these rosters, and there's shift in defensive coordinators, and really exactly where to place them. It's just so difficult at such an
Yeah,
early point in the season.
it'd be like trying to place kickers right now.
Yeah, absolutely. um I think we should do this episode again, maybe midway through the season, and see kind of what changes. I think that'd be kind of interesting.
Or even just do a recap, bring these old slides up, and see how close we were. I think
Oh
that would be
yeah.
fun. Like, hey, where do we stand on this? Make it a little competition.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's put $10 on a position.
I mean, we could. Hey, why don't anybody that's here go ahead and take a bet? Who's going to win now? We'll throw some Red Sports Radio swag out there. Send you a hat or something. Whoever wins.
Yeah, absolutely. So go ahead, put in your guesses down there as to either who's going to be closer between me and James, and as well as what your guys' top 10 are, and we'll go ahead and throw in some swag out there for y'all.
All right, all
But
right. So, man, I think these top tens are coming together.
yeah,
I'm fired up. College football starting.
college football starting, NFL is just around the corner. We got what, 2 more weeks left on the calendar?
We got a couple weeks left on the calendar. We can be done with these preseason games of watching the scrubs play and hearing people speculate off, oh, they're going to be good because we saw them in preseason. Man, if that ever came true in regular season, there would be people a lot better off than they are now.
Yeah.
Chicago. Sorry.
No, but it is a speculation though for me, and I'm positively speculating.
I hope Justin Fields goes out there and does great. Does great things. I think he's well deserving of it. Just hard for me to put him there now.
Yeah, I kind of heard what he was doing in Indianapolis over the past couple weeks with his training, and it sounds very promising from a Chicago fan standpoint.
Yeah, you guys are so optimistic about everything. It's amazing to me.
It's our year.
Everybody
It's our
and
year.
people are saying like, "Oh, Detroit's going to win the league." It's like, no, they're not. I'm a Lions fan, and I'm telling you, like, stop telling me they're going to be good because I don't want to believe it. I've had my heart broken too many times.
Well, is this the best built Lions roster you've ever seen?
Yeah, but they'll screw it up. It's the Lions.
Oh. I'm
You
a
think
firm
it's
believer in what.
we screwed up the best running back and the best wide receiver's career. I'll say it. Barry Sanders, there's not, you can't name a handful of running backs that were better than him.
No. I can't
Megatron?
name.
Can you name a? Can you name? Let's say even let's say two wide receivers that had a bigger impact or were more dominant in a game-to-game situation than Calvin Johnson. We can say Jerry Rice. Yeah, he was great.
I want to say Jerry Rice. Let me see. Randy Moss. Would you put him up there?
I put them up there, but I don't think they had the dynamic capabilities. They had to change the way they had to change the size of the quarterback to play against Megatron.
Would you put Tyreek Hill?
Well, he's a little guy.
Above. He's
No,
little, but like,
I won't put him above Megatron. No way. I mean, Jerry Rice was just an all-around great.
yeah. So again,
But I think if we saw Megatron play a full career, where those records stand.
he's much further ahead, and it's crazy to believe where he was at.
To
First of
retire
all,
in his prime.
yeah, absolutely.
Like, it's
And
just kind of ridiculous. No, so as a Detroit fan, it's like, we're going to screw the. We had those guys, and we screwed it up. We're going
yeah,
to do it again. We've got the track record.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I think we're gonna be back at it next week. We do have a special guest coming next week. I'm gonna go ahead and announce it on our social media. So go ahead, follow us on our TikTok, our Facebook. It's gonna be everywhere, and then our Instagram as well. So go ahead, follow that there. You can find it. It's at Red Sports Radio. Again, leave a like on the podcast. Go ahead, drop in your top tens, and whoever gets the closest to it, we'll send you some good swag at the end of the season.
All righty. Well, hey, have a good night, man.
Yep, absolutely. Have a good one.
Later.
Take it easy.